Part 5. Shao's sweet wife, she is doted on. Author, Jin Yet. Chapter 41. Chapter 41 I'm afraid I'll stink to you. Su-Yoon spent the whole afternoon in the laboratory and almost didn't even drink water. She is a person with extreme work enthusiasm. Once she is involved in work, she will be in a high mood and completely forget about the surrounding environment. Unconsciously, it was already dark. It was not until someone knocked on the door of the laboratory and urged her to leave that she realized that the task was a little more difficult than she expected. She had not calculated the time well. Zhao Xian said she would be given 3 days. She followed her previous procedures and habits in the laboratory, forgetting that she could not stay here as long as she wanted. When the time comes, you must leave. No one is allowed to stay in the company except for those on duty. After all, the information is still confidential. For example, she can only stay in this laboratory. I took off my coat and hat, took off my gloves and washed my hands repeatedly. Only then did I realize that it was already past 8 o'clock and it was completely dark outside. Zhao Xian had naturally left a long time ago and would not stay here waiting for her. The mission was released and she only had to wait for the result. Su-Yoon stood at the door of the building and looked at the lights inside. Most of the lights inside had been turned off. The lighting nearby was not very good. The whole road looked dark. There were not many cars passing by. Not easy to fight. Sighing faintly, he took out his mobile phone and tried to call a taxi using the app. As expected, it was not easy to call a taxi, and no one took the order. However, judging from the map, you can reach a small town about 2 kilometers ahead, and the transportation should be more convenient there. There is no other way but to move forward first. The cement road is fairly easy to walk on, but it's quite dark and there aren't many people around, so it feels quite deserted. Not far away, there was a faint sound of a car behind her. Su-Yoon subconsciously turned around and saw a gray car that looked like a private car, so she stepped aside. Unexpectedly, the car seemed to be heading towards her, passing directly beside her, and then stopped with a squeak. He subconsciously jumped to the side, but when he landed, his feet were unsteady and he stumbled. Ugh! He instantly fell to the ground, feeling a sharp pain in his ankle. What bad luck! The car stopped, the door opened, and someone got out of the car. She was nervous, angry, and scared. She looked up at the person and couldn't help scolding, "Why are you driving? What are you hiding from?" Su-Yoon spoke almost at the same time. Su-Yoon was stunned for a moment. Sure enough, she saw that it was Xiao standing in front of her. She pursed her lips, wanting to cry and laugh at the same time. "What, why is it you?" He didn't even say a word to her, which made her think wildly and frighten herself. "Who do you think you are?" Xiao squatted down in front of her and looked at her feet carefully by the light in the car. "Are you injured?" "It's okay, I sprained a bit." Putting a hand on him, Su-Yoon barely stood up. Su-Yoon moved her body and sat in the car, feeling much more at ease. The car was driven by Su Feng, and Xiao also got in. Then he closed the door and said, "Drive." The car started to move slowly, and he immediately asked, "Which foot is sprained?" "Su-Yoon." "Where are the others?" "He wants to show her feet here, right?" "It's okay, I'll check it out when I get back." She subconsciously touched her ankle with her hand and said softly. Such a small gesture caught his eye. Xiao quickly pressed the button and raised the partition between the front and rear seats. Then without any explanation, he picked up her injured foot and placed it on his lap. When the car lights turned on, he saw that his ankle was red and swollen. His eyebrows immediately frowned. "Why are you always so easily injured?" "I don't have it," Su-Yoon said softly. He said she looked like a porcelain doll, but in fact she just had a sprained foot. Speaking of which, it wasn't because well, there was something wrong with his car. No muscles or bones have been injured. Go back and apply some ointment. Try not to move around for the next few days. He needed it for her and quickly made a judgment. Soo-yoon was surprised. You can still see a doctor. An ordinary bruise or sprain is not that complicated. Seo raised his eyes to look at her, and then his eyebrows furrowed even more tightly. With the twitching of his nose, he hesitated a little. On your body. The next words were not spoken, but the doubts between his eyebrows were very obvious. On me. Soo-yoon was stunned for a moment, looked down at herself, and reacted instantly. Oh, you mean the stench on my body, right? Seo. I was doing experiments and got it in the lab. She gathered her clothes more, but there was nothing she could do about it. This kind of odor was quite sticky, and it would be difficult to remove it if it stuck to her body, even if she washed her hands repeatedly. I still have it on my body. She herself smelled it for a long time and was a little numb, but others smelled it, so she probably smelled bad. No wonder Su Feng looked back at her when he got in the car. He was obviously hesitant to speak, and he probably restrained himself from asking. Laboratory, Seo said with a flash of surprise in his eyes. If I remember correctly, you are making fragrance, not smell. Looking at his expression, Soo-yoon almost laughed. His eyes clearly said, are you bluffing me? It's fragrance. But there are tens of thousands of spices, and the ingredients are also very complex. Even those with peculiar odors can be separated out by analysis. My task these 2 days is to analyze the ingredients and differences of 48 kinds of odors. This will also be helpful for future work. Perfume blending seems to be a simple profession, but in fact there are many complicated things, and it involves a lot of chemical knowledge that needs to be applied. If you are not really passionate about it, but just out of pure interest, you may not be able to persist for too long. After a moment of silence, Seo said nothing more. Soo-yoon guessed that he was too smoked to talk, so he spontaneously sat on the side and opened the window to let some air in. It was weird, I'm sorry. She didn't expect that he would come to pick her up, and she couldn't get rid of the stench on her body quickly. She was indeed a little embarrassed now. Suddenly a hand was placed on her shoulder, and before she could even turn her head, she was pulled into a generous embrace. You sit so far away, are you afraid that I will eat you? He said dissatisfiedly, and tightened his grip on his hand. Soo-yoon, I'm afraid I'll stink to you. It stinks. As if to confirm his statement, he suddenly lowered his head and took a deep breath on her hair. Isn't this very, cough, cough. Whether he was choked or not, his body's reaction was very honest and he coughed several times. Soo-yoon. Go back and take a shower. End of this chapter. Shao's sweet wife, she is doted on. Author, Jin Yet. Chapter 42. Chapter 42. Seo is so cute. As soon as she got home, Soo-yoon decided to take a shower first. She put on a lot of shower gel, mixed with her own proprietary fragrance oil, and soaked in it for more than an hour. She felt that her whole body and even her hair were fragrant, and then she put on her pajamas and came out. Seo had already finished washing in the other bathroom. When he saw her coming out, he directly took a large towel that had been prepared, got up and walked towards her. Is your hair not blow-dried? He discovered that she didn't have the habit of blow-drying her hair after taking a shower. Even though there is everything in the bathroom, her hair is always wet every time she comes out. I don't like the feeling of the hairdryer blowing on my scalp, Soo-yoon said, naturally reaching out to take the towel in his hand. Unexpectedly, he turned his hand and put the towel directly on her head. Then he put his hands on her shoulders and said, sit down. Unable to resist him, Seo sat down obediently. Seo turned his hands to the towel, grabbed her hair and rubbed it gently. His service was really attentive. Soo-yoon hesitated for a moment, then she let him play with her hair. From being uncomfortable and flattered at first, to now slowly getting used to it, and even starting to enjoy his kindness to her, Soo-yoon felt as if she had fallen into a honey pot, and her eyes narrowed in comfort. Not hearing any sound, Seo tilted his head and saw that the little woman had closed her eyes and tilted her head slightly, looking like she was enjoying herself. The corners of his lips were slightly curved and the movements of his hands were as wide as possible. Lightly, pat dry little by little from scalp to ends. Sleeping with wet hair is not good for your health, and she doesn't like to use a hair dryer, so she can only use a dry towel to absorb the moisture little by little. Soo-yoon almost fell asleep, and said drowsily, "Now, it doesn't stink anymore, right?" Uh-huh. It's okay not to mention this. When it comes to this, Seo simply doesn't know what to say to her. This was really the first time he met a perfumer who made her whole body stink. She was really extraordinary. As if she didn't notice his slightly resentful mood, Soo-yoon squinted her eyes and continued, "After using my exclusive essential oil, it's impossible to even think about the smell. In fact, the smell wasn't that unacceptable in the first place, but it was a little too much today. It may be a bit strong when mixed together, so..." "Don't go tomorrow," he interrupted her and said. Ah, upon hearing this, Soo-yoon immediately opened her eyes and turned her head. "That won't work, ah." The result of turning her head suddenly was that her scalp was pulled. She screamed in pain, but Seo immediately let go and couldn't help scolding, "You are so reckless, why are you in such a hurry? This is my job. Since I have to do it, I can't give up halfway." And I agreed. "Promise what?" Seo asked keenly. "Promise my boss that the results will be available within 1 day. 1 day, 48 kinds. Yes, 48. After a pause, Soo-yoon was very surprised. "How do you know it is 48? 48 different odor sources were analyzed and detailed data was analyzed. Who told you that the results must be obtained in 1 day?" Without answering her question, Seo asked her instead. "I. You." "Yes, I asked for it myself." "You're crazy." Seo's hand loosened and the big towel fell from her shoulders to the sofa. Because this matter was unusual, he ordered Su Feng to ask the freshman. Wang Shuo's reply was that they were indeed conducting experiments on new products. There was also an experiment on odor suppression and fragrance retention that was being conducted simultaneously, but the requirement was that it should be done within 10 days. The results will be available within days, and there are 3 people in charge of this part at the same time. Among the 3 people, Soo-yoon is not on the list. Wang Shuo was also surprised and said he would find out immediately. Now, she told him that the data results would be available in 1 day. Moreover, did she ask for it herself? Is she crazy? Soo-yoon didn't know why he had such a big reaction. She looked up at him and blinked. "No, I'm not crazy. It's not very difficult." Seo. It should be said that she is too confident, or too arrogant. The company's task arrangements are well founded and will not be particularly stressful, but they will not be easy either. Since the task is 10 days long, it means that it has been estimated that it will take such a long time to complete. In other words, you will have to soak in that stink all day tomorrow. He took a deep breath and asked. "Are you worried that she will come back smelly tomorrow?" Soo-yoon thought for a moment and said, "It's okay. I'll bring the essential oils and fragrances over there tomorrow, and I'll come back after cleaning them up. Don't worry. The road over there is remote and the working hours are too long. Don't go there tomorrow." For the first time, he felt that it was a stupid decision for the company to choose the experimental base there. At around 8 o'clock in the evening, it was hard to even get a car. She also sprained her foot. Moreover, why do you have to work until after 8 o'clock? The working hours are a bit too long. She wanted to retort, but when Soo-yoon saw that he looked unhappy, she suddenly realized that this was a way of showing he cared about her, and she felt heartwarming and funny. Sci-Yao stood up against the sofa, knelt on the sofa with one leg and leaned forward. Sci-Yao had to reach out and hug her to prevent her from losing her balance and falling. My great president, you have decided on the place and time of work. Why do you dislike it again? Everyone else can work, why can't I? Besides, the working hours are not long. I can start at 6 o'clock. I just want to do it for a while and forget about time. The most I promise is that I will finish it as soon as possible tomorrow and come back early. Sci-Yao's eyebrows could almost be tied into knots, but he still had a look of disapproval. Sci-Yao like this is so cute. Su-Yun laughed, leaned over and kissed both sides of his cheeks, then held his face and placed light kisses on his nose and the corners of his lips. Okay, it'll be over tomorrow anyway, you promise me and give me enough freedom to work. Sci-Yao, who was still sullen at first, was too weak to resist her coquettish attack. With a helpless sigh, he directly grabbed her head and pressed her lips hard. There is really nothing he can do to her. At 11:30 in the middle of the night, Luo Yuanhang was awakened by a phone call from the factory. He felt unhappy that his dream was interrupted, but what he heard next made him even more unhappy. What? Say it again. The sound was so loud that it woke up Zhang Shiwei, who was sleeping. She rubbed her eyes and sat up. What's wrong? Are you still letting people sleep? Luo Yuanhang pushed her away casually, got out of bed with his bare feet and shouted, you won't go in again if the raw materials are gone. Why are you purchasing food? Where are the suppliers? Find them. Mr. Luo, the raw material is essential oil from the laboratory. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Shao's sweet wife, she is doted on. Author, Jin Yet. Chapter 43. Chapter 43, Voyage, she dug a hole for us. Jing. Luo Yuanhang paused, isn't it enough that I sent it early this morning? Mr. Luo, the quality of that batch of essential oils is not up to standard and cannot be used. You didn't pass. You were pulled directly from the laboratory, and you told me that you didn't pass. Luo Yuanhang was pacing back and forth in the living room, extremely anxious. Did you have a problem yourself and want to shirk the responsibility? How is that possible? Mr. Luo, there has been an increase in orders recently. Workers in the factory are working overnight. We all follow the process. What's more, the factory is an assembly line. How could we have a problem? Otherwise, come and see for yourself. Look. The other side is also very aggrieved. After all, if something goes wrong, the production will be delayed. Once the order delivery is delayed, the consequences will be serious. Okay, I'll go there right away. After hanging up the phone, Zhang Shiwei immediately got dressed and left. Zhang Shiwei came out of the house in her pajamas, rubbing her eyes. Seeing him like this, she pouted, where are you going in the middle of the night? Whose phone number is this? Turning his head to look at her, Luo Yuanhang seemed to have thought of something. Go change your clothes and come with me, quickly. Me? Zhang Shiwei pointed at her nose and woke up after a doze. She didn't know why. Where am I going? Go to the factory, there's something wrong with the essential oil. No matter how reluctant Zhang Shiwei was, she was dragged to the factory by Luo Yuanhang. The lights in the factory were brightly lit. As soon as the person in charge saw them, he immediately came up to them and said, Mr. Luo, you are here. Come and take a look. There was a whole box of essential oils placed in the corner. He bent down and took out a bottle from it. Luo Yuanhang frowned and took a sniff. No problem. The person in charge didn't say anything. He turned around and took the finished product and handed it to him. Try this again. Cough, cough. Stimulated by the smell, he coughed a few times and covered his nose. Why is it so choking? Did you have a problem with the dilution process? It's all mechanized now. I checked everything carefully and there is absolutely no problem. According to my experience, there should be something wrong with the essential oil, so there is such a big difference in the finished product. Mr. Luo, this batch are the essential oil still products from our laboratory. Facing the other party's doubts, Luo Yuanhang turned his head and glanced at Zhang Shiwei. She was just standing aside and watching, but when he looked at her like this, she looked innocent and said, "What are you doing? They are still made according to the previous formula. If there is a problem, it is also a problem with the formula, not me." Principal. Luo Yuanhang. The words blurted out, and Zhang Shiwei realized the problem in her words when the two of them stared at her like this. In everyone's eyes, she concocted the formula and developed the product. If there is a problem with the formula, it is not her fault. After coughing twice, she changed her words again. I mean, there is absolutely no problem with the formula. So, it won't be my problem. Then she looked at the person in charge of the factory. The things in the laboratory have always been made strictly according to the formula. If there is a problem, there should have been a problem before. Why is the problem happening now? Therefore, the problem cannot be the laboratory, must be on your side. Can you check whether the other ingredients are wrong or whether the workers made mistakes? Director Zhang, don't speak so harshly. What is shirking responsibility? We discovered the problem and reported it to Mr. Luo as soon as possible. We also wanted to find out the cause. Now that we have investigated, it should be the essential oil problem. If you think it is not the case, you are a professional and can help us find the root cause of the problem so that we can make adjustments and put it into production as soon as possible. Zhang Shiwei got angry when the other party said something. Why do you mean I can help you find the source of the problem? Am I too free? If you don't solve the problem quickly, you want to drag me down. Let me tell you, there is absolutely no problem in the laboratory, you can figure it out on your own. She was not polite, and the person in charge of the factory was also angry. He looked at Luo Yuanhang and said, Mr. Luo, since you are here, what do you think we should do now? There have been a lot of orders recently, and the construction period is already very tight. If it is not solved as soon as possible, there will definitely be no success delivery within the contract time. Oh, it turns out that it was too late to deliver the goods, and you deliberately made excuses to shirk responsibility. You are not careful, and you want to put a basin on the head of the laboratory. I think you are. Okay, Luo Yuanhang suddenly shouted. Zhang Shiwei was stunned for a moment, pursed her lips and fell silent. It's been so long, is there any point in still arguing about whose responsibility it is? He put a sullen face on his face and stuffed a bottle of essential oil into Zhang Shiwei's hand. Director Zhang, take this bottle of essential oil back to the laboratory and treat it well. After some research, is there something wrong? Before she could speak, he said to the person in charge of the factory, if there is a problem, it is indeed necessary to solve it quickly. You are right to report it in time. But you cannot insist that the problem is only with essential oils. You should check it out yourself in addition. He thought for a while and said, let's see if there are any essential oils left over from the past. If there are any, send them to the laboratory immediately, and we will conduct a thorough check here. Having said this, the person in charge could not say anything more and could only nod, okay. But Mr. Luo, we must do it as soon as possible, otherwise, the construction period may. I know, you've worked hard. Luo Yuanhang patted his shoulder and pulled Zhang Shiwei, who was still standing there, away. Sitting in the car, Zhang Shiwei looked at the bottle of essential oil in her hand and muttered resentfully, why do you want me to take it back to check? If there is anything to check, I think the problem must be within the factory. Are you so sure that there will be no problem in the laboratory? Luo Yuanhang asked while driving. Of course, this is not a new product, it is still the same old one. I have prepared it according to the formula. How could something go wrong? Unless. She paused and suddenly became energetic, unless there is something wrong with the formula. With a sudden stop, Luo Yuanhang turned his head and glanced at her. Due to inertia, Zhang Shiwei's body rushed forward, and was strangled back by the safety belt. She held the essential oil bottle in her hand tightly, sniffed it close to the tip of her nose, and frowned as she thought carefully, Yuanhang, will we, being tricked? Pressing his lips tightly, Luo Yuanhang remained silent. That formula was left by Su Yun. Could it be that she had done something to the formula? I asked her why she had been silent recently, and didn't even stand up to defend herself. It turned out that she was holding back her evil here. Yuanhang, she dug a hole for us. Luo Yuanhang stepped on the accelerator again, go back to the laboratory first. End of this chapter. Shao's sweet wife, she is doted on. Author, Jin Yet. Chapter 44. Chapter 44 Fire Me. On the way back, Luo Yuanhang asked Zhang Shiwei to summon all the staff in the laboratory. Early in the morning, it was still dark, and most people came in a hurry. They didn't know what happened, but with this level of urgency, it should be a serious situation. Knowing that the matter was of great importance, Zhang Shiwei put away her lazy look and seriously reanalyzed the essential oils brought back from the factory, and compared them repeatedly with the formulas. She was just puzzled as to why the finished product would have such a big difference. She has slacked off in the past 2 years, but she still has the basic skills. She is sure that there is nothing wrong with the ingredients in it, so what exactly is the problem? Regarding the problems with essential oils and finished products, Luo Yuanhang did not tell the laboratory staff. He only said that the company had received a new batch of tasks, and then the existing personnel would be assessed and adjusted. The assessment was to ask them to analyze this batch. What is the difference between the essential oil composition and the previous one? Facing this assessment, everyone in the laboratory didn't know why. But since they were told to do it, they were busy, but they still seemed to have no clue. In fact, Luo Yuanhang didn't have much hope in his heart. Most of the staff in these laboratories had just graduated. In the past, Su Yun was here and everything was done by her, so he was not in a hurry to cultivate some spare talents. What's more, talent costs money. There are not many outstanding people in the perfumer profession, and those who can have some ability are expensive. His company is not very big, so why spend unnecessary investment on it? There is Su Yun, free and powerful, which is enough. Who would have thought that the woman he thought he had firmly in his grasp would actually fly away? After checking several laboratories, he kept his eyebrows furrowed. Time was running out. If the problem was not found out as soon as possible, the factory would not be able to ship the goods and the samples would be unqualified. Then the breach of contract would require compensation for the losses. At that time, as he walked to the door of Zhang Shiwei's laboratory, he glanced inside and saw that she was the only one inside, frowning and doing experiments seriously. Luo Yuanhang vaguely felt that something was not quite right. After thinking about it, he walked back and looked into each house, finally discovering the problem. Where is Wu Arian? No, I don't know. Others didn't know either. I haven't seen her. Have you notified her? Everyone in the laboratory has been notified. In order to avoid missing out, in addition to WeChat and the work group, we also called everyone one by one, but paused. She didn't get through. You didn't get through. Fight. Keep fighting. This is a critical moment for the life and death of the company. How can you be so lazy? Even if you find her home, you have to bring her over, Luo Yuanhang said angrily. This. Hurry up and do it, he roared. Then, I heard a lazy voice behind me. I came so early today. Hey, You are so early too. Ah, you are all so early. Turning around slowly, she saw Wu Arian walking in refreshed from the outside, with a smile on her face and looking in a good mood. Luo Yuanhang's anger level was rising steadily. What time is it? You just came now. Arian looked at him, then raised her wrist to look at her watch. It's still early, I'm not late. The company has notified all the laboratory staff to gather in the laboratory immediately. Where have you been? Luo Yuanhang asked with a livid face as he gritted his back molars. I'm sleeping at home, she said more confidently. What notification? I didn't see it. Besides, I don't read work news during non-working hours. Are you still reasonable? Everyone is working hard for the company now. What do you look like? Don't think that since you are a veteran, I won't do anything to you. I think Su Yun did it to you before. The following words it came to an abrupt end, and Luo Yuanhang stopped suddenly. Su Yun is simply a taboo name in the company. Forget it, go to the laboratory and check the essential oils inside to see if they are any different from before. Are there any differences? If you do a good job, you will not be held accountable for being late. Luo Yuanhang thought about it and found that, besides Su Yun, the person most likely to know the answer was Wu Arian. She has been following Su Yun as an assistant. Whether it is preparation, formula, or other steps, she is the only one who knows everything here. But this woman's thoughts are now following Su Yun. I guess it is very possible. I also want to switch to a new job. Fortunately, the difference between her and Su Yun is that he still holds her labor contract in his hand. As long as he doesn't approve it, he can hold her for a while longer. Essential oil? Mr. Luo, don't you have all the formulas? What could possibly go wrong? She put down her bag slowly and walked in with a smile. When she saw Zhang Shiwei turning to look at her, she said, besides, isn't our director Zhang here? With her in charge, why do we need me to take over? Her sarcasm made Zhang Shiwei unable to stand up, and he immediately said, Wu Arian, don't be so arrogant. The company is evaluating you now, is it your turn to point fingers? Who do you think you are? Let you be you, just do it. Where does all this nonsense come from? Hey, why am I so weird? Am I wrong? Director Zhang, you are so capable. Many of the company's most popular products are from your hands. Do you still need us people for such a small problem? You think I'm pointing fingers? Think I talk too much? It's okay, fire me. She was fearless anyway, and she was waiting until Luo Yuanhang couldn't bear it and fired her, and she would be free again. Zhang Shiwei was so angry that she was about to get angry when she was held down by Luo Yuanhang. Arian, that's not what Director Zhang meant. This is indeed the company's assessment. If you, or whoever among you does well, is the first to analyze it, the company will immediately give him a promotion and a salary increase. Luo Yuanhang is here and will never break his promise, he gestured and swore, but you only have half a day, and you must get results in this half day. Hearing him talk about promotion and salary increase, everyone was shocked except Wu Arian. She still had the half-smiling look, rolling up her sleeves lazily. Mr. Luo is really brave. Then we all have to work hard. After saying that, he turned around and went in to sit down. Luo Yuanhang could hear the sarcasm in her words, but he could only endure it for now, hoping to find out the result as soon as possible. Why Wei, can't you find out what's different? He turned around and asked Zhang Shiwei in a low voice. Zhang Shiwei's face fell. How do I know? It's not like you don't know the formula, otherwise, we go to Su Yun and ask her face to face. End of this chapter. Shao's sweet wife, she is doted on. Author, Jin Yet. Chapter 45. Chapter 45. Mr. Luo, too high to reach. Luo Yuanhang pondered for a moment. That's fine. When I called Su Yun, I had to use a borrowed mobile phone to get through. She blocked both of them. When she received the call, Soo-yoon had just come out of the laboratory. All the research and analysis data had been released, and detailed records had been prepared. She could just hand it over to Zhao Xian, and she had completed it ahead of schedule. This is indeed not a problem for her. After all, her talent is here, and she has been in the laboratory almost every day in recent years, so she has become accustomed to it. Due to the special nature of her work, the experimental base has a special bathroom for bathing. Soo-yoon took a good bath. As soon as she got dressed and was wiping her hair, she heard the ringtone of her cell phone. "Who?" I asked casually while wiping my hair, turning on my phone and putting it aside. "Soo-yoon, it's me," Luo Yunhang said solemnly. "Who?" Soo-yoon had a big towel on her head, so she really didn't hear it. She twitched her nose and smelled, making sure that every strand of hair had no peculiar smell. She didn't want Xiao to smell something strange on her body again. "The taste is gone." Luo Yunhang. "She did it on purpose. She must have done it on purpose. How long has it been since then? Do you want to pretend that you don't know him?" He pinched his cell phone and tried his best to keep his attitude and not be easily angered. "Soo-yoon, I'm Luo Yunhang. I have something I want to talk to you about. Can we meet in person?" Hearing the words Luo Yunhang, Soo-yoon turned her head and glanced at her phone. The unfamiliar number seemed to have been called from a different number. "No," he replied decisively, and then wanted to hang up the phone with his hands free. "Wait a minute," probably sensing something, Luo Yunhang said hurriedly, "I'm asking you out just because I want to have a good talk with you. Now that we've come to this point, do we have to fight to the death to be happy? We are all friends after all. There are some things and misunderstandings. Wouldn't it be better to talk them out?" "Friend," Soo-yoon straightened up and sneered, "Mr. Luo, I can't afford to be so high." Before she hung up the phone, a female voice suddenly rang over there. Zhang Shiwei said in a sharp voice, "Soo-yoon, are you so afraid to see us? If you have any dissatisfaction or grievances, you can speak openly. Say, are you interested in doing these little tricks? Speaking of small tricks, some people are very good at it." "I'm not interested in this." Picking up the phone, Soo-yoon said towards the microphone, "As for whether you see or not, it has nothing to do with whether you dare or not. I think Mr. Luo and Miss Zhang, I may have forgotten that your company sued me, and we are now the plaintiff and defendant. I'm afraid it wouldn't be good to meet like this in private." He smiled sarcastically and said, "Also, if you make harassing phone calls to me again, I will record them directly and use them as evidence in court." After saying that, she hung up the phone decisively. Throwing the phone back into the cabinet, he looked up and saw Zhao Xian standing at the door, and was startled. Having been discovered, Zhao Xian hurriedly raised his hands and said, "I didn't mean to eavesdrop. I heard you were in the locker room, so I came over to take a look. I didn't hear much." Hearing that it didn't matter whether it was too much or not, Soo-yoon took out a comb and combed her hair. "It doesn't matter, it's insignificant anyway." Zhao Xian laughed, "It seems that you have a plan in mind. In this way, I am relieved. At least your personal affairs will not affect the company." Soo-yoon raised her eyes and looked at her. "Manager Zhao suddenly has confidence in me. It's true that I didn't before, but after seeing your recent work performance." After a pause, Zhao Xian changed the topic. "By the way, I have already read your research and analysis report, and it is well done." "Thank you." She thanked her politely, without any modesty. She has indeed completed her work tasks well, there is no need to be modest about this, and she is confident enough in herself. Seeing her confident look, Zhao Xian's always arrogant face finally showed a smile. She leaned sideways against the cabinet on the side, turned to look at her and said, "Frankly speaking, I always thought that you were a plagiarist bit." Soo-yoon raised her eyebrows, but Soo-yoon was non-committal. In fact, there was no need for her to confess. She knew in her heart that Zhao Xian had distrusted and despised her from the very beginning. That look clearly says, "You are a plagiarism dog. Just a thief." The reason why I don't defend myself is because a pale defense is always the weakest. Only with strength and time can we prove ourselves. Seeing that she didn't answer, Zhao Xian continued, "After all, Zhang Shiwei is quite famous in this circle. In the past 2 years, he has been regarded as a dark horse and has won many awards. And Wulan's rapid rise in this industry has a lot to do with the products she has won awards for. If you want me to believe that you are an unknown person, huh?" She chuckled, but this time, there was no mockery or disdain in her laughter, just relief. "Do you believe me? What if I really plagiarized it?" Suyun turned her head and looked at Zhao Xian, and finally spoke. However, Zhao Xian burst out laughing and said, "Then I can only say that you are simply a jade in the dust and have gone astray. With your talent and strength, if you work your own, you will definitely achieve results. Why bother? Plagiarize others. And I believe you didn't plagiarize." Her determination and trusting eyes made Suyun feel warm in her heart. "Thank you, these two words are sincere." Zhao Xian actually didn't have a close relationship with her. Although he was initially hostile, he was now willing to trust her wholeheartedly. This trust moved her. Raising his hand and patting her shoulder, Zhao Xian stood up straight and said, "I heard that you have a low chance of winning this lawsuit, but when you talked on the phone just now, I felt that you were very tough. Don't be afraid, it's true. It can't be true even if it's fake." Yasuyun nodded, turned around, took out her mobile phone and bag, and then closed the cabinet door. "But don't delay this matter for too long. The nights are long and the dreams are many. You have a very bad reputation outside. You have to win this lawsuit as soon as possible. Also, when you finish these things, come to work in the project department for me." Suyun laughed, "That's natural. Let's go. The project here has come to an end for now, so I can relax." Putting a hand on her shoulder, Zhao Xian walked out with her. "You came here by taxi? How inconvenient is that? I'll take you." "Yi Cheng, where are you going?" Shaked her head, Suyun said, "No need. Why are you being polite to me? Are you still blaming me for making things difficult for you before? No, as a supervisor, you should be strict with your subordinates. It is also appropriate for you to be strict with your subordinates. What's the matter? The taxi smells better than my car, or is it because my car seat hurts my butt?" Zhao Xian's half-joking words made her laugh. "No, someone will pick me up. Thank you for your kindness." "Oh, boyfriend," Zhao Xian smiled meaningfully. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Shao's sweet wife, she is doted on. Author, Jin Yet. Chapter 46. Chapter 46. How about we try again? Suyun smiled and said nothing, and Zhao Xian didn't ask any more questions. "Okay, mysterious. Since you have a flower protector, I won't be your driver. I'll leave first. You can pay attention. Click it." She nodded and separated from Zhao Xian at the door of the company. Zhao Xian went to the parking lot to pick up the car. When she passed near the door, she took a special look and saw Suyun still standing there. He was about to ask a question, but saw her running towards the front. Out of curiosity, Zhao Xian slowed down the car and watched as she ran to a black car and stopped. The door opened, the person got in, and the car started. The people inside can't see and don't know what they look like. Hiss. My curiosity, shaking his head, Zhao Xian laughed, stepped on the accelerator, and watched the car fly away from his eyes. The car logo made her a little dizzy. Maybach. It smells very good today. Sia rubbed her hair that was not completely dry and expressed satisfaction. Has it been washed? Yeah. Following his hand, Suyun leaned in his direction and leaned comfortably on his shoulder. I've only washed my bald hair 3 times. Sia adjusted his position so that she could lean more comfortably, then picked up a small piece of her hair, put it on the tip of his nose, and took a deep breath. It really smells good. I passed the assessment and can officially join the job. Thinking about what Zhao Xian said just now, she was quite happy. In any case, this is the recognition she got through her own efforts. Ever since she promised Luo Yuanhang to go behind the scenes, she hasn't had much contact with outsiders for several years. Recently, there have been lawsuits and negative news. She is really tired of such complicated interpersonal relationships. Fortunately, she has a lawsuit. Yao was always by her side. Hearing this, Yao frowned and said, enrollment? Haven't you already done the onboarding process? Wang Shuo just did it for you. That's not what I meant. Anyway, this is the first step. To get initial recognition, this is a good first step. In the future, she will gradually use her strength to be recognized by more people. She must be enough to stand by his side. Rather than feeling ashamed of oneself. Yao thought about it for a moment and didn't quite understand where her excitement came from, but no matter what, she just wanted to be happy. There is something wrong with Wulan's factory. I'm afraid, it's going to collapse, Yao said casually, playing with her hand. Her fingers are very slender, and the skin is very white, but not delicate. Possibly due to long-term experiments and exposure to various chemical raw materials, although the inside is soft to the touch, it is a little rough. Yao rubbed his fingers over this small patch of roughness, and he really liked the feel. Let him hold her hand. Suyun was still digesting his words. Is there something wrong with the factory? It is said that there is a problem with the most important essential oil, so the finished product is unqualified. We are now stepping up efforts to remedy it. All the staff of Wulan Laboratory have cancelled their vacations. Suyun, no wonder. What? Yao turned his head and asked, looking at her head. It's nothing. Suyun straightened up and looked at him, her hand still held in his palm. Luo Yuanhang called me today, and Zhang Shiwei also said that he wanted to meet me and had something to discuss. Now that I think about it, it may have something to do with this essential oil incident. You agreed? Yao asked, looking at her. Of course not. She curled her lips with a look of disdain. I am now the original defendant with them. How can we meet casually? Besides, I am not an employee of Wulan, and I have nothing to do with them. It has nothing to do with money. If there is no problem, why should I meet them because of this? Her lips were slightly raised, probably because she had just taken a shower. The color of her lips was bright red with a hint of pink. The corners of her mouth were slightly lowered, with a look of arrogance and disdain on her face. Yao really loved her little expression. He held her chin, leaned over and kissed her. Unexpectedly, he would kiss suddenly. Suyun opened her eyes wide and stared at the super large face in front of her. Can you give me a signal first? Yao originally just had a thought in his mind, but after touching her lips, he quickly fell into despair. The passionate kiss took a long time to end. Suyun lay on his shoulder and gasped for air, making Yao chuckle. Laughing, he patted her back gently to help her calm down. You have to learn to breathe. Every time we kiss, she holds her breath until she almost faints from lack of oxygen. What a silly girl. But this also just showed that she had no experience in kissing at all. This discovery made him very surprised and happy. Did Luo Yuanhang get kicked in the head by a donkey? Holding such a treasure in his hand, he didn't cherish it at all. However, this made him feel a little bit less disgusted with the person named Luo. Suyun was still adjusting her breathing and trying to put air into her lungs. When she heard his words, she was out of breath. My oxygen has been taken away by you, how can I breathe? Why don't you say give me some space to breathe? I touched my heart, it was beating so fast, it felt like my heart was going to jump out. Yao smiled helplessly, come to think of it, it's still my fault. How about, let's try again. As he spoke, he seemed about to kiss her again. Suyun was startled and leaned back instinctively, no, no need. She has not yet adjusted her breathing smoothly. If she tries it again, she will pass out. Originally he was just teasing her, but seeing her such a big reaction, Yao suppressed a smile, but slowly lowered his eyes, are you starting to reject me? With those lowered eyes and handsome face, there was a faint aura of melancholy. Suyun suddenly felt that she was in the wrong, and that she had committed a heinous crime. She waved her hands in a hurry, no, no, I just. Yao pressed a very light kiss on her lips, very light and shallow, but this light kiss made her heart palpitate. Hitting his face with his hands, why is he so seductive? At this moment, her cell phone rang again, which was a bit disturbing. But it was just enough to relieve the ambiguous and hot atmosphere. Suyun picked up the phone and hesitated when she saw the previous number again. Your surname is Luo, Yao guessed it after glancing at her expression. Yeah, she nodded, thought for a moment, and then picked up, I said. Before he finished speaking, he heard Luo Yuanhang speak bluntly, if I withdraw the lawsuit, can we meet? Suyun, escaping is not the solution to the problem. The three of us sit down and have a good chat. After a pause, he added, for the last time. Suyun looked at Yao, thought for a while, and then slowly said, okay. End of this chapter. Shao's sweet wife, she is doted on. Author, Jin Yet. Chapter 47. Chapter 47. Are you telling me a joke? Yao watched her hang up the phone and said, do you want me to accompany you? No need. Suyun shook her head and said, don't worry, I can handle it myself. Besides, I want to borrow someone from you. Oh. Luo Yuanhang made an appointment with her in a cafe on Ziwan Road. The two people arrived quite early, keeping their eyes fixed on the direction of the door. When he saw Suyun walking in, Luo Yuanhang even subconsciously bowed. If Zhang Shiwei hadn't pulled him, he would have subconsciously he got up and went to greet her. After being pulled like this by her, he came to his senses. Although he was asking for help from her this time, in the final analysis, the outcome of this battle was still undecided. After all, he still held a large amount of evidence in his hands, so there was no need for him to be too humble. But made it very passive. With this thought, he sat down again and straightened his clothes. However, they soon saw that behind Suyun was a man, dressed in a serious suit and a meticulous tie. He looked very serious, wearing gold-rimmed glasses and was elegant, but do not know. Luo Yuanhang narrowed his eyes and scrutinized the man with vigilance. Until Suyun came to stand in front of them, he raised his head and said, you're here. Just tell me if you have anything to say. Suyun sat down on the seat opposite them without hesitation, my time is very precious. Zhang Shiwei gritted his teeth, tried his best to maintain an elegant smile, and looked at her with a smile, Suyun, I haven't seen you for a few days, and you have become more beautiful. Suyun raised her eyebrows, really? Maybe your eyesight isn't very good. I've always been so beautiful. Zhang Shiwei. She turned her attention to the man sitting next to Suyun, haha, I didn't expect you to be so good at talking now. By the way, without introducing you, the person next to you is. Luo Yuanhang also stared at the man, waiting for her answer. Zhang Shiwei asked the question in his heart. In fact, Suyun's changes in these days have always confused him. Especially when she climbed into the new life so quickly and decisively left him and Wilan. She was so straightforward. Was there someone behind her controlling her? Could it be, that he was the man next to her? This is lawyer Luo. Soo-yoon introduced her generously, because the three of us are now the original defendant, we shouldn't have met. But since you insist, I think in order to ensure to be fair and just, it should be done in front of a lawyer. Luo Yuan Hang. Zhang Shiwei. Okay, now if you have anything to say, feel free to say it. Leaning back, Soo-yoon took out her mobile phone, lowered her head and tapped the screen. Luo Yuan Hang never expected that this man was actually a lawyer, not who he thought he was. Soo-yoon, do you have to be so awesome? Isn't it possible that everyone can't even sit down and have a good chat now? Leaning forward slightly, Luo Yuan Hang stared at her, trying to get her response. But Soo-yoon just lowered her head and played with her mobile phone while answering nonchalantly, absolutely. Didn't I agree to meet you? If this is also amazing, then what do you do? What's more, it's not you. Did you sue me first? Now I have a lawyer here to protect your rights. Why, you don't like it? I said, I can withdraw the lawsuit, so why do you have to do this? We are all classmates and friends. Even if we are not friends now, we will not become enemies. Here, Luo Yuan Hang spoke earnestly and thoughtfully, but over there, Soo-yoon just poked at the phone screen but said nothing. Zhang Shiwei pursed her lower lip and softened her voice, Soo-yoon, I know that the matter between me and Yuan Hang made you very angry and sad, but there is no way around emotional matters. You spend all day in the laboratory, Yuan Hang also needs him. You can't mix your personal feelings with your work. Wulan is the hard work of all of us. Do you want to vent your emotions at work just because of your personal feelings? Do you know how much damage and impact the company has suffered because of your making such a fuss? Yuan Hang can't eat well all day long and can't sleep well all night long. We don't know what the new students have done to you. What a mystery, but Soo-yoon, if we meet each other in the mountains and rivers, even if we are not in the same company, we are still in the same company, and we will still meet in the future, so why make such a fuss? Soo-yoon did not respond to her words. Instead, she turned her head and said to the man beside her, Lawyer Luo, take note of their words carefully. If necessary, you can use them as evidence in court testimony. Don't worry, I've remembered everything. Lawyer Luo nodded. Her attitude of being neither salty nor bland, not taking them seriously at all, and even treating them as transparent people finally angered Zhang Shiwei. She slammed the spoon and sat up straight. Soo-yoon. What are you doing? Are you showing off in front of us? Do you think you will win? Do you think you have tampered with the formula? We have to ask you, there is nothing you can do about it, right? Her stern scolding attracted some sideways glances. Luo Yuan Hang looked at Soo-yoon and gently stirred the coffee with one hand without saying a word. Finally, Soo-yoon looked away from the phone screen and glanced at the two people sitting opposite her. She raised the corners of her lips with a sarcastic smile, looked at Zhang Shiwei and said, I'm sorry, I didn't quite understand what Miss Zhang just said. You, stop pretending to be confused. I don't know why, but looking at her like this, Zhang Shiwei's aura immediately dropped a lot, and even his voice lowered. Pretending to be confused. I am so confused. If I remember correctly, Miss Zhang, Wulan sued me, saying that I stole your company's formula and confidential information, and was suspected of plagiarism. In this case, how could I? Is there any manipulation in the recipe prepared by the young lady? She added an accent to the words. Ms. Zhang personally prepared it and chewed each word. Furthermore, even if I really did something, with Miss Jiang's qualifications and ability, I can easily do it after the adjustment. How could it be my turn to ask for help? Miss Jiang, are you telling me a joke? There was a half smile on her face, but the light in her eyes made her breathless. Zhang Shiwei instantly felt as if she had been stripped of her coat and stood here. Her words were contradictory and she couldn't justify herself. His face turned red and white, and he couldn't say a word for a while. Soo-yoon, You don't have to talk in such a weird way. Holding Zhang Shiwei's hand gently, Luo Yuanhang said softly, I said, I am here to make peace with you today, and it is completely meaningless to say these things. End of this chapter. Shao's sweet wife, she is doted on. Author, Jin Yet. Chapter 48. Chapter 48. Don't you have any idea? Glancing at him lazily, Suyun turned her attention to her mobile phone again, not even interested in talking to him. Luo Yuanhang knew that she was deliberately ignoring them, so he stopped worrying about this matter and continued, these days, Wei Wei and I have thought about it very seriously. The emotional issues between the three of us are really it shouldn't be involved in work. After all, you have helped a lot before. Whether we can't help you or you can't help Wulan, we will withdraw the lawsuit and we will not pursue it anymore. From now on, we can go wherever we want, so that everyone can be clear about it, okay? Lawyer Luo, what do you think? Ignoring him, he turned to ask the lawyer beside him. Lawyer Luo didn't speak. He was just an observer, taking notes with pen and paper from time to time. Now when he heard Suyun ask her, he stopped writing and looked at her. Ms. Su, of course not. This is a matter between us, it's not your turn to decide. Luo Yuanhang changed his face immediately, and then said to Suyun, where did you find such a low-level lawyer? I think he is a fake dude, you don't understand anything. Does he know what is good for you and what is good for you? Do you know that you have no chance of winning if you go to court? This is definitely the best outcome for you. Really? I would like to thank you, she sneered and raised a hand in the direction of lawyer Luo. This is the freshman lawyer consultant, the most professional level. You said he is a fake. What kind of thing are you? A pathetic person who only knows how to steal other people's work and is complacent? You. Even though Luo Yuanhang endured it again and again, he couldn't hold it in his face after being scolded like this. Suyun, don't go too far. Too much. Who is too much? What you said is so generous. Why don't I care about Wulan because I can't bear it? I want to ask you, why care about it? How can I not feel sorry for Wulan? How much time have I spent in the laboratory over the years, how many places have I traveled to, and how many experiments have I done in order to collect the best raw materials? How much profit has Wulan gained from the fruits of my labor? How much benefit did you get from me? I really want to ask, tell me, where did I fail Wulan? Her stern accusation left Luo Yuanhang speechless and unable to answer. He could only say hesitantly, I. With a slight snort, Suyun continued, also, I'm really disgusted with the name of your company. I've been busy for so long, but I'm just laying the groundwork for you two bitches. I feel like vomiting just thinking about it. Suyun, please keep your mouth clean, Zhang Shiwei yelled angrily. However, Suyun just sneered, no matter how unclean my mouth is, it's not as dirty as what you did. After saying that, she picked up her bag and planned to stand up. Lawyer Luo, let's go. It really stinks here and I don't want to stay any longer. Wait a minute. Seeing that she was about to leave, Luo Yuanhang didn't care so much. After all, his purpose of coming here had not yet been achieved. He stood up suddenly and grabbed Suyun's wrist. I didn't ask you to quarrel with you. Can't we reconcile? No, she stared at him coldly, her eyes as sharp as knives, and her eyes slowly slid down from his face to the hand he was holding onto her. Luo Yuanhang hesitated for a moment, then gritted his molars and asked again, anyway, can you tell me if there is really something wrong with the formula? He is very nervous and worried. If there is a problem with all the formulas, it will not only affect this batch of goods, but all of them. Everything. Including Wulan's future. In view of this, even if he had to lower his face and be shameless, he had to ask clearly. Suyun raised her eyes and looked at him. The face that once made her happy now looked so embarrassed. Anxiety was written all over her face. The anxiety in her eyes could overflow. It looked like she was not at all. It doesn't look good, it's really ugly. Why did I fall in love with him in the first place? Is there something wrong with Wulan's formula? After a pause, she said slowly, don't you have any idea? Luo Yuan Hang. Let go, Su Yun said coldly. Please tell me clearly, what do you mean? Luo Yuan Hang insisted and refused to let go. Luo Yuan Hang didn't want to let her leave so easily. He still had many doubts that he didn't understand. Mr. Luo, your current behavior has constituted harassment. I advise you that it is best. Before lawyer Luo finished speaking, Luo Yuan Hang suddenly roared, shut up. He looked at Su Yun with stern eyes, please tell me clearly, did you tamper with the formula? You. Is the formula fake? Thinking of this possibility, a chill ran down his back. However, Su Yun did not answer him. She just stared at the hand he was holding onto her and said coldly, I'll say it for the last time, let go. Unless, you want to be the same as last time. Last time. Her words reminded Luo Yuan Hang of what happened in the alley last time. Her attack, her speed and strength shocked him. Almost subconsciously, my hand loosened. Withdrawing her hand, Su Yun turned her wrist, took out a wet tissue with a look of disgust and wiped the place he touched. Luo Yuan Hang, if you touch me like this again, be careful I remove your arm. After saying that, she threw the used tissue into the trash can, turned around and left. Luo Yuan Hang. Seeing the person leave, the stunned Zhang Shiwei realized what was happening. She immediately raised her head in dissatisfaction and asked, why did you let her go? She hasn't made it clear yet, how could she just leave like that? You let go when she asked you to. When did you listen to her so much? You forgot what the company's situation is now. She must have tampered with the formula. Why don't you get the real formula back? What on earth are you doing? Did you hear what I was talking to you? Luo Yuan Hang, are you still in love with her? You are still thinking of her, aren't you? Also, she said last time, what was the last time, why didn't I know, what secrets do you have with her that I shouldn't know? Zhang Shiwei's heart was full of speculation, and Luo Yuan Hang didn't respond no matter how she asked, which made her even more annoyed. Speak, speak, she pulled his sleeves hard, and the more she thought about it, the more she felt something was wrong. Okay. Shut up. Luo Yuan Hang's mind was very confused at the moment, and he was even more annoyed when Zhang Shiwei was making trouble like this. He waved his hand suddenly and shook her off, are you done yet? If it weren't for the fact that you didn't, why should I be so humble? Zhang Shiwei was stunned. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Shao's sweet wife, she is doted on. Author, Jin Yet. Chapter 49. Chapter 49. Su Yun, do you still want to fight with me? Zhang Shiwei was stunned. Luo Yuan Hang had never treated her like this before. He always spoke in a soft voice. Even if she was a little tempered, he would always coax her patiently. When did he scold her like this, and even give her a look in public? Because he was so shocked and stunned, he forgot to cry for a moment and just stayed there. Turning his head and seeing her look like that, Luo Yuan Hang felt a little distressed. He wanted to comfort her, but he was powerless at this time. He just sighed and said, I'm in a mess now. I'll go think of a solution first. You can rest, go back by yourself later. After saying that, he just walked away, leaving her alone. Zhang Shiwei is angry and hateful. Over the past few years, she has had a smooth sailing, and her love and career have been fruitful. She is about to become famous, and then she can kick Su Yun away and take the position of Wulan CEO's wife. She had thought about it all, and when the time came, she would announce her retreat. Anyway, the company had grown by then. If we spent money to recruit a few useful people, would it still have to be Soo-yoon? As for herself, she can enjoy peace of mind and happiness. Unexpectedly, it was just a little bit worse. Now Wilan is facing a crisis, and Yoon Hang's attitude has also changed significantly. All of this is Soo-yoon's fault, hers. If she hadn't caused trouble, how could it be like this? Soo-yoon, it's all your fault. After leaving the coffee shop, Soo-yoon said goodbye to Lawyer Lugo in the parking lot. Lawyer Lugo, thank you very much for today. I'm sorry to trouble you. Soo-yoon thanked him sincerely and shook hands with him. Lawyer Lugo shook hands with her and said, "You're welcome, this is my job, and it's not too troublesome. It's just." He hesitated for a moment, then met her doubtful gaze, and then continued, "I probably understood what you said just now. The other party took your formula as his own, and then bit back and falsely accused you of stealing. However, what I said just now cannot be used as evidence in court, right?" Soo-yoon said with a faint smile. "Yes," Lawyer Lugo nodded. He was surprised at how calm she was. Ms. Soo doesn't seem worried about this. As you just saw, they are the plaintiff and I am the defendant, but when have you ever seen the plaintiff come to beg the defendant? So, why should I be anxious? Her tone was relaxed, and she was really not worried. As if he was infected by her, Lawyer Lugo also laughed. "Yes. I have been working in the industry for so many years, and I have never seen it before. In this way, there is really no need to worry about Miss Soo. But there is one question, please allow me to talk." "Already? You say? The recipe they are talking about is really you." The following words are not finished. There are some words that don't need to be spoken, as long as you understand the meaning. Soo-yoon smiled. There is a saying that you can't have the intention to harm others, and you can't have the intention to guard against others. Although I don't know people well, and the intention to guard against others comes a little late, it's better than nothing. You say so? Lawyer Lugo understood, and his smile deepened. Indeed. If you don't have the intention to harm others, you won't harm yourself. I really admire Miss Soo. You've won the prize, you are professional, knowledgeable, and know right from wrong. I still have a lot to learn from you in the future. I'm very happy to meet you." Lawyer Lugo stretched out his hand to her again. This time, he was obviously more enthusiastic. Soo-yoon shook hands with him and said with a smile, "Me too." After bidding farewell to Lawyer Lugo, Soo-yoon planned to take a taxi to the company. Although Zhao Xian said that she did not have to be in such a hurry to go to work, now that she had officially joined the job, she hoped to adapt to the new environment as soon as possible. Zhao Xian also said that she would be allowed to officially enter the laboratory after all her personal matters are settled. Maybe it is the peak period, and all the taxis are full, and no one is taking the orders when calling for a taxi through the software. At this time, I feel that it is really inconvenient not to have a car. The car was bought by Lugo Yuanhang before, and it was still in his name. She didn't care about these things at all at first. Now that she thinks about it, it's really stupid, but it's not a pity. She doesn't care about his things and doesn't care about them. Looking at the time, she considered whether she should just take the bus, when suddenly someone tapped her on the shoulder from behind. There was clearly a threatening force. Soo-yoon frowned and moved her feet to make a spin. However, she originally planned to break away from the control, but she made a mistake. The hand was still firmly on her shoulder, but it had changed its direction, and now they were facing each other. "Soo-yoon, do you still want to fight with me?" The man standing in front of her was very thin, wearing a meticulous white shirt, and the cuffs were tightly buttoned. The sapphire blue cufflinks reflected bright light in the eyes, making people almost dazzled. Chu Chen. The lips moved, and the name almost became unfamiliar. Speak somewhere else. Chu Chen raised his eyebrows, and when he let go of his hand, there was no doubt. Su Yun had no objection and followed him around 2 streets, finally arriving at a relatively quiet alley. One end of the alley is blocked by a wall, so there is no one around and it is extremely quiet. Chu Chen walked all the way to the end before stopping. He put one hand behind his back and the other hand hanging naturally by his side. He paused for a while, then slowly turned around. Su Yun, long time no see. He stood there, looking at her unscrupulously, from top to bottom, as if he wanted to see her clearly. You came here specifically to see me. Su Yun absolutely didn't believe it was a coincidence. In the past few years, it is impossible that the Chu family did not know her whereabouts, but they had never seen her. It was not that they could not find her, but that they did not want to see her at all. She was so decisive back then, but there was no way to turn back. Now seeing Chu Chen standing in front of her, she had mixed feelings in her heart, but she still tried her best to maintain calm on her face. What if? Chu Chen took 2 steps forward and said, "Look at what you have done to yourself." Su Yun looked down at herself and said nothing. "Come back with me." Without saying much, Chu Chen directly stated his purpose. No, however, Su Yun decisively refused. "Even now, you still haven't given up. How do you treat him, and what does he do to you? Don't tell me, now, you still treat him." Before Chu Chen finished speaking, Su Yun suddenly raised her head and looked at him. "I didn't. Luo Yuanhang and I are already traveling together. From now on, I have nothing to do with him. If so, why?" Chu Chen looked at her with calm eyes. "Are you still angry after so long?" Biting her lower lip, Su Yun pondered for a long time. "I will go back." After a pause, she added very slowly, "But, not now." End of this chapter. Shao's sweet wife, she is doted on. Author, Jin Yet. Chapter 50. Chapter 50. I'm afraid you're like this. After all, you are still angry. Chu Chen shook his head. "When you left, Grandpa did say harsh words, but he was also angry at that time. As a family, how can we take angry words seriously? It's been so long, and you should have suffered enough. Look at what the outside world says about you now, and you're still facing a lawsuit. You've made yourself like this, and you still refuse to look back." "It's not that I refuse to look back. When I feel like I can go back, I will naturally go back." Su Yun straightened her back. "I will solve my own affairs myself. Don't worry, no one will know that I have anything to do with the Chu family relationship." However, these words seemed to anger Chu Chen. "Do you think the Chu family is afraid of being implicated by you? Do you think you won't be implicated if you don't say anything? Why are you still so self-righteous after these few years? Then just think that I am self-righteous. When I am qualified to return to the Chu family, I will go back and tell my grandpa personally." "Are you serious about not going back?" Chu Chen took another step forward and looked down at her and asked. He is extremely thin, which makes him appear to be getting taller. His complexion is almost transparent, but his lips are not bloodless pale, with a bit of pink. Such pink lips appear on his face. There is no sense of disobedience on the surface, and it only makes people think of 3 words, beautiful boy. Su Yun raised her head, her eyes particularly firm. "No." Before I finished speaking the next words, there was already a palm wind blowing in my face. With no time to think, she immediately raised her arms to fight. Chu Chen's speed was very fast, and the wind from his palm was blowing towards him. The speed was fast and dense. If Su Yun hadn't reacted quickly enough, she would have been hit by the palm. After a few rounds of going back and forth, she was obviously overwhelmed and began to gasp. Then, Chu Chen kicked her in the direction of the waist. "Receive." Kankan stayed 3 centimeters away from her waist, just stopped his strength, then stopped and retracted his feet. The movements are done in one go, but people can't react in time. You have regressed, he said lightly. Yes, Su-yoon admitted frankly. When she fought against several bodyguards brought by Luo Yuanhang before, she realized that she had been slacking off and regressing in the past 2 years. In the past, it would have been effortless, but my wrists would be sore that day. Are you insisting on not going back? Chu Chen asked again. This time, Su-yoon didn't answer, but her eyes gave him the answer. Take care of yourself. After saying that, he passed her and left. By the time Su-yoon turned around again, the person had already disappeared. At this time, she felt that her arms and calves were very sore. Although Chu Chen had some room for action, fighting him would still consume a lot of energy. Only. Has your incident finally attracted the attention of the Chu family? She thought that her grandfather had given up on her and left her to fend for herself in the past few years. In the Wulan laboratory, everyone has devoted themselves wholeheartedly to experiments and has made countless attempts. However, the composition of essential oils is inherently complicated. There are dozens of spices in them. When mixed together, even if there is a formula, there will be different changes in the slight differences in weight, not to mention whether the current recipe is correct or not. Everyone seemed to be stumped. Their necks were sore and their eyes hurt after working for so long, except for one person. Wu Arian was still sitting on the chair, with all the experimental equipment in front of her. However, her body was tilted back, her hands were hanging down on both sides, and her head was also tilted back. When she looked at people, she was already asleep. Zhang Shiwei saw such a scene when he entered the house. She clenched her fingers, took a deep breath, then walked over slowly, picked up a blanket, and bent down to cover Wu Arian. Probably because she was shocked, Wu Arian opened her eyes drowsily and snorted when she caught a glimpse of Zhang Shiwei. Director Zhang, you are back. Yes, Zhang Shiwei said with a smile. Arian, are you tired? Thank you for your hard work. I just made a cup of coffee. Can you take a sip to refresh yourself? He looked at the person in front of him in surprise, as if he didn't recognize him. Yan's eyes clearly said, did you take the wrong medicine? Being looked at like this, Zhang Shiwei felt really unhappy, but she had to restrain herself. Su-yoon had suffered a lot before. If she could no longer bear her temper, she knew what would happen. Look at what I'm doing, you're afraid I'll poison you. How about I take a sip first, he said half-jokingly, and then he really took a sip of coffee from the cup. Look, I care about you. Thank you, Director Zhang. However, since you have already drank, I can't drink from you again. That doesn't matter. Zhang Shiwei was just about to say I'll make you another drink when she heard her continue. Besides, don't you know you can't eat or drink these things in the laboratory? After all, it is fragrance. Any interference from fragrance or other tastes will affect the judgment. Moreover, the taste of coffee itself is relatively strong and easy to cover. As a perfumer and director, Zhang Shiwei would commit such a low-level behavior. Wrong, it shows that she either didn't pay attention to the matter of fragrance mixing at all, or, she didn't understand it at all. She smiled awkwardly, of course I know. But it's because you are too tired, so I care about you. Forget it, it can't be done anyway, so don't do it now, let's come out and talk about it. Without any explanation, he pulled her out of the laboratory room, sat down on the sofa outside, and diligently made coffee again, and took snacks and fruits and put them on the coffee table. You must be hungry, right? Let's eat something first. Matt, I'll treat you to something delicious later. Arian looked at her with a horrified look on her face, holding her hands in front of her body in a protective manner. No, Director Zhang, just say what you want to say. I'm afraid of you. Zhang Shiwei. Nearly unable to hold back the burst of prehistoric power, she turned around suddenly, clenched her fists hard, and gritted her teeth. Finally she recovered, and when she turned around again, She still had that smile on her face. Arian, I know you have some misunderstandings about me, but it doesn't matter, I don't mind. I don't have anything else to do today, I just want to talk to you. Let's chat. Look, we have been working together for so long and we haven't had a good chat yet. You can treat Suyun as a friend and even give up your job for her. Can't you treat me as a friend too? She spoke sincerely, looking at Arian with a smile on her face, waiting for her response. Wu Arian still maintained that vigilant posture, staring at her mouth when she spoke. When she finished speaking, she blinked and shook her head decisively, no. Zhang Shiwei. End of this chapter.